Polar bear versus grizzly bear. Who is stronger? I'm sure we've all heard of both polar bears and grizzly bears, but it's time to answer the one question a lot of people have thought about. If they got into a fight, who would win? Who's stronger? The ferocious grizzly bear of North America or the hulking polar bear from the frozen Arctic? Both these species of bears are closely related and are known to have quite the same strength and size. And also, we all know they're strong enough to take down gigantic prey as well. But which one of them would be able to take down the other? How are they alike? How are they different? Who's stronger? Well, stay tuned until the end of the video because today we'll be comparing both these bears to figure out which one is stronger. How do both these bears hunt? What do they eat? Are their eating habits similar or different? Well, let's discuss that. Primarily, polar bears eat seals, and these seals are extensively found throughout the Arctic Circle, but most polar bears avoid moving too far north to capture them. That's because the ocean around a polar bear's natural habitat is completely covered with ice during the winter. So, considering they don't have a healthy seal population to hunt, polar bears end up eating other prey including walruses or even beluga whales. But even then, seals are their primary prey and they're highly dependent on seals for their diet. Because of that, seals have evolved in a way that now they're wary of approaching polar bear dens during the summer and spring months. On the other hand, grizzly bears are opportunistic feeders. That means they eat pretty much anything they can get their hands on. Anything they can get their paws on. This includes carrion, insects, eggs, fish, rodents, ground squirrels, moose, elk, caribou, and even deers. Besides animals, they also eat many types of plants, including the ones that have fleshy roots, fruits, berries, and grasses. And in some areas of Alaska, they've even been known to attack cars with humans. So when it comes to grizzly bears, unlike polar bears, they'll try to hunt anything that can make their stomach feel full. They really aren't picky eaters. Considering the diets of grizzly bears are a lot more vast than that of polar bears, does that mean they are bigger than them in size? Or does that mean they're stronger? Well, that's what we'll be discussing next. Let's start with some numerical figures. What is the height and weight difference of both polar bears and grizzly bears? Well, the height of a grizzly bear is around 5 feet 8 inches or around 172 centimeters. What do you think? Are polar bears more or less than that? Well, if you thought less, you're gonna be shocked because the height of a polar bear is actually 7 feet 10 inches, which is more than 238 centimeters. Talking about the weight, a grizzly bear weighs around 400 to 1,000 pounds, or around 180 to 450 kilograms, but a polar bear weighs around 775 to 1,300 pounds on average. That is approximately 350 to 590 kilograms. So if we take a look at these numbers, it's clear that polar bears have a huge advantage when it comes to size. They're absolute giants. In fact, their extreme size and weight is one of the reasons that they are also perfectly evolved to endure the harsh winters of their Arctic habitats. Also, polar bears don't even need to hibernate. That's because the fall and winter months are the best times for them to access food. It's the time when the ice forms, and for polar bears, it's the best time to go out and hunt their main food source, seals. During this time, they can go further out from land and hunt in waters that are rich with seals. Also, polar bears have a thicker fur and fat supplies, which makes them a hard target for others to defeat. That's because those animals would have to dig in their teeth and claws a much further distance to do any damage in case of polar bears than other prey. Grizzly bears are huge as well, but they're a much leaner predator. Just because they have a smaller size doesn't mean they're bad at hunting. It just makes their size more suited for warmer climates, thicker vegetation, and faster prey. Another reason for their lower height is the fact that they don't need the insulation that polar bears do, because unlike the white bears, the grizzlies hibernate during the colder months of the year. And opposite the polar bears, winter is usually a lean season for these brown bears, considering most animals move south and their food becomes scarce. Before we talk about which of these bears would win in a fight, there's an even more interesting question to answer. Can they actually meet? Where do they live? Is there any time of the year where both of them are in the same regions? Well, the brown grizzlies generally live further south than the Arctic regions of polar bears. Nowadays, they live across much of western Canada and Alaska. On the other hand, polar bears live on the northern edges of North America and have a range that extends all the way to the North Pole. And considering the main diet of polar bears is seals, they tend to remain close to water and they rarely travel inland. There have been no recorded instances of a grizzly actually getting in a fight with a polar bear, but there have been sightings of them encroaching each other's territories. As climate change continues to thaw the polar ice drifts, grizzlies have started venturing into the territory of polars. In fact, they have been caught on camera together, and they have even mated to give birth to a hybrid grizzly bear. Yes, that's not a myth. Grizzly bears actually do exist. This might sound interesting for those wanting to see them in a fight, but if it happens, their habitats might be extremely affected, and if they get destroyed, that means bad news for us humans, considering that would deplete the food sources. So if you witness a fight between the two bears, it's not exciting. And well, considering they can meet, we come to the main question for today. Which one of them will win in a fight? Firstly, talking about the paws, polar bears are at an advantage. To support their great size, their paws need to be huge as well, and polar bears have really strong paws that help them traverse snowdrifts and also helps them swim to hunt aquatic prey. On the other hand, when it comes to claws, grizzlies are at a slight advantage even though the claw size for both of the bears is the same. That's because their claws are built in a way that they're perfect for digging and doing damage to any opponent they might come across in the wild. Moving on, the bite force of a polar bear is around 1200 psi, but the bite force of a grizzly is around 975 psi. They're both strong bite forces. Both of them can easily bite through an iron pan, a cinder block, or even a bowling ball. But if you compare the two, polar bears have an advantage. In fact, there are only a few animals that have a greater force than that of the mighty polar bears. Polar bears seem to be winning most of these comparisons, aren't they? What is something grizzlies have an advantage in? Well, robustness of skulls is something where the brown bears are at an advantage. The heads of grizzlies are built like a battering ram with extremely thick bone all around it. In fact, here's a fun fact. Their skulls have even deflected rifle bullets. On the other hand, polars have a much slender skull. That does make them a better swimmer, but it leaves them vulnerable to trauma in the head region during a fight. Another quality where grizzlies are at an advantage is speed. If both of them were in a fight and it came down to a chase, grizzlies would definitely take over. If you've ever heard that grizzlies are big and slow, it's a misconception. These brown bears are big and fast, and their maximum speed can go as high as 35 miles per hour or 56 kph. That means it would only take them 7 seconds to run an entire 360-foot length of a football field. However, if a fight turned out to be a swim-off, polar bears would have an advantage because their swimming skills are faster and more stable because of their huge paws. Of course, when it comes to winning fights, strength isn't the only factor that matters. Intelligence is also an important factor, and when it comes to intelligence, polar bears are still at an advantage because they're actually widely regarded as one of the world's most intelligent hunters. Their ability to stalk prey over long distances and outsmart them makes them a master at tactics, so if by chance the fight ended up in a hide-and-seek situation, a definite advantage would go to polar bears. So to conclude, yes, both the bears are evolutionary masterpieces, and in their respective habitats, they're both perfectly equipped to reign. But if transplanted into a different environment, these strengths can also become weaknesses. But to answer, if they were both somehow in a neutral area, it would be a pretty fair fight, even considering the size difference. If it was a close fight, polar bears would be at an advantage and would probably win. However, if there was a distance, grizzlies would be the winner considering their speed. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know your opinions about who would win in the comments down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Till then, peace out and have a great day.